Word on the street is that this might be one of the best new releases in years. Let's find out if that's true. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So today we are doing a review of James E. Pepper Barrel Proof. Comes in a nice, beautiful decanter bottle. This is a newer release. I think it came out in December of 2023, but honestly, I did not hear much about it until recently. I've started to see in the last month or so especially a big uptick in people talking about this in the whiskey tube community in particular, and honestly, most of them are saying that it's phenomenal, really hyping it up, talking about it being a Blanton's killer or an alternative to that. And I get that comparison. It comes in around that $65 mark MSRP. It is in this like beautiful package that could be a marketing gimmick, but could also just enhance your overall experience. And the question really is, how good is this bottle? Is it worth all that hype? Is this one people are now sort of criminally overlooking? Have you been passing it on shelves? I just wanted to grab a bottle as soon as I saw it, and it was sort of on my mind and in my radar. Saw it, grabbed it, and I want to review it for you. Just before we dive into the whole tasting experience, I did kind of want to give you a lowdown on this bottle and its history, because I think it's worth talking about. I've never reviewed a bottle from James E. Pepper, so figure we'll take a little moment to dive in. That's why I've got my notes here. So for the bottle itself, age-wise, it's not age stated, but on the website it does say that there's an average of 5.5 years here. I think it's a mix of some of their older stocks and their younger stuff. Mash bill is undisclosed, but an interesting note here is that it does use malted rye instead of just regular old rye in the mash bill, which could add a layer of sweetness. And then again, I said MSRP here is $65. It is barrel proof, which is uncut and unfiltered. It's also a very low barrel entry proof that apparently James E. Pepper uses, because these come out relatively low proof overall. Mine is only 107.8 proof. So that being barrel strength tells you they might be going into the barrel quite low. Okay, in terms of James E. Pepper itself, a little rundown on the history of the distillery. This is one with one of those really long legacies that got interrupted. Actually not in Prohibition, it doesn't seem like, but more in the bourbon glut, in the kind of fall in the market in the 1960s. So started producing whiskey during the American Revolution. They actually eventually built up to having two different sites, one where Woodford Reserve currently is, and then one in Lexington. They had to shut down, like I mentioned, in 1967, just due to a really tough time in the bourbon market, and didn't make it through that tough time. But after a really long kind of campaign, I think a decade-long campaign, some really fantastic people dedicated to this distillery relaunched it in 2008. They partnered with Lawrenceburg Distillery and one of my favorites, Bardstown Bourbon Company, to kind of get things off the ground and source some whiskey. And then they began distilling their own product again in 2017. This bottle comes in a decanter. Part of their history is this recreates a bottle from 1945. So sort of World War II era look and feel here. And I'm just really excited to dive in. I hope that little dive into their history and just to understand their story and where they've come, and for them to now be kind of blowing up and having a product that everybody seems to be talking about, they gotta be proud. All right, let's go into the tasting here, the nosing, the experience, and answer the question of how good this whiskey really is and whether it's worth all the attention it's getting. All right, on the nose. Oh, it's really nice. A nice, like really soft, rounded, warm vanilla is the first thing I pick up on this. And then there's like a bright cherry and caramel going on. There's a little bit of like an oak and barrel spice in there as well. But perhaps the most interesting thing here is this like peach. I've heard others reference it as like white grape. I'm getting more of a peach right now, but I do see how they could get to like that white grape juice. Something very soft and sweet and fruity, and it's nice. It's a nice complement to everything else going on here. A very, very solid nose. It does a good job coming out of the glass. I wouldn't say it's jumping out of the glass as much as some other noses that I would give like 10 out of 10, but it's pretty dang good. All right, let's go in on the palate and see what flavors we pick up. Cheers. It's delicious. It's really, really good. It's warm and rounded, just like that vanilla note on the nose. That really comes through. The mouthfeel is very solid. Just nice and coating. And again, it's not like aggressive. It's just very rounded to start. And it gives you that vanilla, caramel, and that peaches and cream, or peaches and almost, yeah, whipped cream kind of note is really there in the middle. But man, it really reminds you that it's probably got some age from their older stocks, and it starts to bring in that rye spice and that barrel spice, and the finish is particularly long because it gets spicy and a little bit, not tannic or bitter, but just brings some of that leather and oak presence to it. Very interesting how it goes from very warm and fruity and sweet to kind of richer, darker, and spicier on the back end. All right, let's go in for a second sip now that it's coating our palate and see if we can pick out some more flavors here. Cheers. Yeah, again, I'm just noting how the spice, even though this is only like 107 proof, the spice is kicking it up for me. It's drinking more like 117. It probably at least 10 proof points over what's on the bottle there. But that's a good thing. It gives it heft. And then that one, I really got more of that white grape kind of experience right in the middle of the palate. I don't know if it's like more of a pear, grapey experience that then again transitioned into that oak and spice on the back end. Still plenty of that warm vanilla up front. It's really, really solid. Let's go in for the third sip. Think about that finish in particular, and then we'll evaluate the experience overall. Cheers. Yeah, another couple layers there. The caramel really kicked up on the palate for me on that sip, so I got a little bit more of that rich, sugary experience. And then I got like an almond note pretty distinctly on that sip, so a little bit of like a nut, but still a kind of creamy experience there, kind of like a candied almond or something like that. But yeah, overall the experience is very warming and smooth up front, fruity and kind of sweet in the middle, and then really nice and spicy and oaky, and has the presence of age on the finish. I would say the finish is pretty dang long here, especially given that it drinks above its proof and it has that spice, and kind of the oak and barrel characteristics are kind of clinging on here for quite a while. Really impressive. Really, really impressive product. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Really happy that it somehow worked its way into my radar. Just keeping up with everybody else in the Whiskey Tube community, seeing more and more people talk about this bottle. And honestly, I do think it deserves to be talked about. I think it deserves the hype, the praise it's getting. It is delicious. The word that keeps coming to mind is just delicious. Like, I could sip on this all day. And for around $65, beautiful presentation, barrel strength product from a smaller distillery, that's a pretty dang good value. Really happy that this is my first experience with James E. Pepper, and a little worried that if I tasted anything else from them, I wouldn't maybe be as impressed, but this is really, really good stuff. Would love to hear in the comments, have you guys been able to taste this one yet? Have you seen it around you? I don't believe their distribution is super robust. I'm lucky enough to live in Kentucky and have access to it because they're in Kentucky as well, but Would be curious to know if you've tasted it, what you're thinking. Is this one that you still think is underrated? Do you think it's going to continue to explode and more people are going to hear about it? Just want to start a conversation and see what you guys think about this particular release. And is there anything else from James E. Pepper that I should be checking out that maybe I'm not even aware of? While I still have you, would love to say if you're enjoying all the content coming out of the channel, would love to have you aboard as a subscriber for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Hoping to continue to produce lots more informative, fun, relaxing, great content for you guys. While you're at it, hit the like button on this video. It helps it get out to more people. It's going to do it, everybody. It's a delicious pour. James E. Pepper, barrel proof in this decanter bottle. Can't really say much negative about it. I really enjoy it. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.